Dr. Julianne Cooper. You are the Dean of a new school here in New Hampshire. I'm going to ask, go ahead and put on the headphones. And this ought to be a treat, because I think this is a cool thing.
Teaching fundamentals of citizenship and the Constitution.
Yeah, I am holding in my hands. I'm going to hold it up to the camera that I've got right here. Hopefully we'll get this linked up as well. But basically it is saying, get a college education with your high school diploma. A new private high school designed for the student who does not fit into the traditional academic model. But you're really going to concentrate, from what you said earlier, on the Constitution and the principles thereof.
Our goal is to create thinking, thinking citizens who make decisions and who understand the principles behind our Constitution and certainly the Declaration of Independence and the other founding documents. It's time. I taught for 25 years in higher education, and I handed out constitutions to students virtually every year. And many of them had never actually read it. They would tell you what it said, but they hadn't read it.
And that, to me, is the sad thing. And I think, to a large degree, that's where a lot of our problems are nowadays, because we are absolutely ignorant of our history, going back as to why we had the revolution, why we split off from the Brits. Present company excluded, obviously.
Just remember, there are Brits and there are Englishmen. Let us not forget that the entire problem of distant and tyrannical government, and that our founders, Tom Paine, Sam Adams, and others, wrote and declared that they were working to preserve their rights as Englishmen, as they understood them, dating back from the Magna Carta and various revolutions and parliaments, against the distant and tyrannical government run by King George. And here today, we are defending our rights, okay, now under the U.S. Constitution, against the distant and tyrannical government.
Just to add to that, I had a copy of the Magna Carta in poster form, and I laminated it and put it up outside my door. And I don't know how many people, especially the young people, would come by and say, well, why do you have this here? These are college-age kids who have no clue.
And that's exactly what I mean. And I believe that we would not be in the pickle that we are in right now if people understood the history, understood the fundamentals of how we arrived here. You know, it goes back to that statement, those who do not study their history, well, they're screwed, is basically what it comes down to.
Absolutely. And by the way, the English have been ahead of us in losing their liberties. In the 19th century, the British had a more or less libertarian government. They conquered the world mostly with commerce rather than with force, and their industry and their prosperity grew exponentially, as did ours. And they gradually lost that. In the early part of the 20th century, they went downhill faster and further than we had in terms of the road to socialism. And we at our peril are following.
Well, let me kind of turn us back, because we've kind of gone off on a nice tangent. Certainly
but let us return to constitutional scholarship.
Yes, and again, your school, the Liberty Harbor Academy.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
We are trying to, we intend to give a college education, as you said at the very beginning, to high school graduates. And along with learning how to be a good citizen, we would like them to start being citizens when traditionally young men and women took their place in society. By the late teens, early 20s, they should be on their way to their life and putting their lives together. And none of this 27, 28, 29-year-olds at home to mom. They should be ready to go. And part of it is that our colleges and universities have stopped educating. They are really, I had many students who were about to graduate from college who would come to my office and say, Dr. Cooper, I know less now than I did when I graduated from high school. Many of the classes I've taken in college were easier than high school classes.
I would agree.
So we're now graduating 22-year-olds with a lot of debt, mainly because our government keeps feeding money to the schools, the colleges and universities, and no jobs, and no place to go, and not enough education to actually get a good job.
So what are some of the things that your school is going to stress?
We're going to stress citizenship. We're going to stress learning how to be an adult, a social ability, the ability in etiquette and manners and protocol, and understanding how to live and be a member of society rather than how to play video games for hours.
The typical and traditional academics.
It'll be a liberal arts education, the typical liberal arts college education that one would have gotten in the 1950s.
I'm going to say you're taking the traditional terms liberal arts college and
yes.
not something that teaches liberalism.
No. It has nothing to do. The word liberal arts actually came from the fact that it is the education for free men, free individuals. For individuals who are not being controlled by a government or by family or by slavery. So the liberal arts is the education for the free citizen.
Well, we are definitely interested in this because we have said publicly, we've written on Granite Rock, that we believe that conservatives have abandoned the educational field for a number of different reasons, and then it became it's almost like a liberal wall erected after we left, and now it's time for us to storm the ramparts.
It's time, and we're going to have to start with the younger students. We can't take over, we can't change the universities before we change the high schools. Well, and we're starting with teens, the time that they're preparing to become adults.
Well, I also say that it's time for some of the adults to also storm their school boards
yes.
as well,
yes.
and get in, find out why it's costing so much to educate so few with so very little results.
Yes.
Thinking of which, I found out something really surprising the other day. I sat down and talked to my HR VP in California. I work for a California company.
Yes.
And, he's somewhat of a conservative, and I was telling him some of the things I was seeing, and we were sharing some ideas. But we were talking about the cost of education, and we in this country we spend more and more and seem to get no more, or in many cases less.
Less, I would say.
And we're
less.
thinking, $10, $12, $15,000 per year per pupil in most parts of the United States. It's only costing about $7,000 in California, and they think that's a lot. I'm not sure whether that means there's a lot of hidden costs picked up by the state, that it's really costing them double what they think it is. But I was just astounded at the number. It's so out of line for what would otherwise be a very expensive place to live.
Yes.
It is. Well, Doctor, I'm going to ask that you come on our show because I've got a lot more questions than what we have right now, because I know they want to have us start clearing up
yes.
and clearing out. So.
And I really appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you very much.
Granite Grunk is an important message.
So I will ask you the same question. When you want to know what's going on the conservative side of New Hampshire, where do you go?
Granite Grunk.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with our roving reporters, we are trying to get out a little further afield and bring back conservative news to
yes.
New Hampshire.
It would be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I look forward to talking again.
Very good.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.